Welcome, everyone, to the Monday edition of Fair Territory. We're going to get to the World Series Game 3 coming up tonight in a second, but I want to start the show today with the news of the moment, the news that broke last night, first by Jeff Passan of ESPN. The Orioles have a new manager. His name is Craig Albernaz. He was the bench coach for the Cleveland Guardians the past two seasons under Stephen Vogt. Stephen Vogt could very well win his second straight Manager of the Year award for what the Guardians did this season. So Craig Albernaz is an interesting hire, and he's a guy who has been kind of in demand in, I'd say, the last 2 years. He's had some interviews. I believe he interviewed with the Marlins last year and others. So here's someone that was going to get a job this go around. And what's interesting about this for me is how Cleveland is a target for other teams when they're hiring executives, when they're hiring managers. And just look at this hiring cycle alone. Albernaz to the Orioles. Kai Correa, who was a coach with Cleveland, he's going to be the Mets' new bench coach. He was also in San Francisco with Albernaz before they were in Cleveland. And Matt Foreman, the Guardians' assistant GM, is a finalist for the Rockies' head of baseball operations job. And it's interesting because with Foreman, he is up against Amiel Sade from the Arizona Diamondbacks, who has been in the game a while. He was with the Red Sox prior to the Diamondbacks. And to me, it seems he's much more experienced than Foreman. And when I ran that by someone in baseball recently, that person said to me, yeah, but Cleveland is seen as the model mid-market team, the team that seems to compete every year, and how they do it, that secret sauce is what everyone wants. So the Orioles have their man, still a number of managerial openings to go. We will get to them in due time over the next several weeks. But the World Series is still going on. Oh, yes, no major announcements during the World Series. This never happens. That's the rule in baseball, which is never followed. But we have Game 3 coming up, and this is an interesting series, perhaps more interesting than some people anticipated when we got going here. It's 1-1. And tonight, we've got Max Scherzer against Tyler Glasnow. Max Scherzer for the Blue Jays, Tyler Glasnow for the Dodgers. Bo Bichette will be in the lineup again for the Blue Jays. And Bo Bichette, before World Series Game 1, had not played since September 6th, a span of nearly 7 weeks. He had that sprained left knee. And as I reported on the broadcast in Game 2, after the second inning in Game 1, when he was playing, when he was in the lineup, he put on a bulky knee brace. He was wearing a sleeve around that knee, but he decided he needed more. He needed bulk. So he did that. I assume that's what he's going to wear tonight. Did not play except for a pinch hit appearance in Game 2. The Jays are trying to take it easy with him because, of course, he's coming off this injury. They don't want to play him every day, even with the off days in the World Series. But he's back in there tonight. I presume he'll be batting cleanup behind Guerrero. He is a bat that is huge for them, obviously, when he's healthy. And in talking to the Blue Jays players during this series, they've been quite adamant about how he's kind of their heart and soul in the lineup, and a guy that didn't even get to 20 home runs, but nearly had 100 RBIs this year. That's how clutch he was. He's someone that they value a great deal, both in the clubhouse and, of course, when they're putting the lineup together as a manager and coaching staff. So Bo Bichette back in the lineup. The pitching matchup, it's an interesting one to say the least because of Max Scherzer, 41 years old, starting Game 3, coming off that brilliant performance in Game 4 of the ALCS that really helped the Jays turn this thing around, or turn that thing around. Max Scherzer is pitching on extended rest, as Shane Bieber would have been pitching on extended rest and will in Game 4. Blue Jays manager John Schneider said they wanted to give Bieber an extra day. I don't really believe that's the reason. One guy is on 10 days rest, one guy's on 11, something along those lines. They're okay. The real motivation here, it seems to me, and from what I understand talking to some Blue Jays people, is that Shane Bieber has given the Blue Jays an awful lot since returning from Tommy John surgery. Remember, they traded for him while he was completing the final stages of his rehabilitation, and he's pitched really well. He's done extremely well for them, as well as anyone could have imagined. And they simply don't want to push it. And they're probably thinking he's got one good game left in him. AJ Przinsky mentioned this on Foul Territory the other day. So if you want Bieber to go all out in that one game, Game 4 would be the time to do it. Scherzer can start Game 3 and Game 7 if necessary. Not that big a deal with game 7 because that's ultimately going to be a bullpen game, most likely. Short leashes for everyone. But that seems to be the motivation here. Scherzer, of course, has big game experience at Dodger Stadium across North America, and he's coming off that great outing. But it seems to me this was as much motivated by Bieber as it was by Scherzer. Now, Scherzer at Dodger Stadium. This is going to be interesting. Go back to 2021, the NLCS, Game 6. Scherzer had pitched in relief in the division series in Game 5 against the Giants. He came back in Game 2 of the NLCS, wasn't particularly good, and then told the Dodgers his arm wasn't right. It was overcooked. That was the term he used, overcooked. And the Dodgers wound up using Walker Buehler on 3 days rest in Game 6 against the Braves. Buehler did not really pitch all that well, as you might expect, on 3 days rest. And ultimately, the Dodgers lost the series. Scherzer has been something of, I don't know that a villain is a right word, but fans are not exactly short memory people in Dodger Stadium and in LA in general. And they are going to remember that Scherzer did not take the ball. Whether he was justified and not up to it physically or not, this is a thing. So I do expect him to get a chilly reception tonight. I also expect him not to care one bit. Scherzer is used to big game environments. He was telling us the other day how on August 8th, I believe it was, he pitched in Dodger Stadium against Clayton Kershaw on Kobe Bryant bobblehead night, and he loved the energy. He loved the whole thing. So it's going to be an interesting atmosphere. Of course, the Dodgers playing their first World Series game at home, and with Max Scherzer obviously starting for the other team. Scherzer, amazing postseason history. We'll go through it all tonight, I'm sure, on the broadcast. He's one of the great central characters of our game. And game 4 in the ALCS, when he stared down and yelled at his manager, that was one of the great Scherzer moments and one of the great Blue Jays moments of recent memory. Finally, as we discuss World Series Game 3, the Dodgers are considering a lineup change. It's interesting with the Dodgers how they've become this starting pitching machine, and yet with that great lineup, Ohtani and Freeman and Betts, they're not hitting. They haven't hit in the postseason. They're averaging, since the start of the division series, take out the wild card round, since the start of the division series, averaging 3.7 runs per game. Ohtani, Betts, and Freeman combined 198 in that span, 716 OPS. Those guys haven't gotten it done. Now, the team is still 10-2 in that time, or 10-2 in the postseason, I should say. That includes the wild card round. But Dave Roberts is mulling a lineup change because Andy Pages is 4 for 43 in the postseason. And while he's a great defender, they're looking for a little bit more at the bottom of the lineup in front of Ohtani, right? So what can they do if they want to put Pages on the bench? They could go with Kike Hernandez in center field or Alex Call. Probably it would be Hernandez. And Hernandez is not as gifted a center fielder as Pages is. He's good out there. Hasn't played all that much out there this season. Neither is Call for that matter. But they might want to get Call's on-base skills into the lineup and kind of redo the bottom of the order that way. So that's the decision Dave Roberts is mulling here. We'll see how it all plays out. We'll see what he ultimately decides here. Pages did have a hit in game 2. I don't know that swings this one way or the other, but they will lose something defensively if he's not in there. And maybe, the idea would be maybe, to gain something offensively. So there you have it. That is the preview of game 3. Talk about the Orioles. We've got much more to come. The Inside Dish will be next.
This episode of FT is brought to you by Huel. Cheers.
Cheers.
We got a new Huel edition here, the Daily Greens. I've got blueberry, lemon, and thyme. You've got?
I got myself peach and hibiscus. I love peach. This is delicious. Fuel for the go, man. And this is really good for your body. It's really good for your systems. Anything that has greens in it, especially from Huel, is pretty fantastic. This will get you going, a little energy, a little boost, and keep your insides feeling well too.
Yeah, developed by registered nutritionists and dietitians. Few vitamins, minerals, and superfoods. Only 25 calories, 4 grams of fiber, only 1 gram of sugar. That's the goods. Of course, we still love the Huel Black Edition. I got chocolate peanut butter. How you doing?
Strawberry banana is delicious.
Let's go. Huel makes healthy eating simple. They also just launched into Target stores nationwide. Try both products today with 15% off your purchase for new customers with the exclusive code FOUL at Huel.com/foul. Use that code and fill out the post-checkout survey to help support the show.
Time now for the Inside Dish, the part of the show where I talk maybe about a story I've written, a trend in the game, something else going on with the sport. And today I want to go in a little bit different direction. And I'm going to go in a little bit of a different direction because of an interview I did with Freddie Freeman before Game 1 of the World Series in Toronto. And I asked Freddie about being back in Canada. He's played, of course, for Team Canada. His mother and father were born in Canada. And he talked about his mother, Rosemary, who passed away from melanoma when he was only 10 years old. And he said that when he plays in Canada and people ask him about his mom, to him, it's kind of a cool thing because it keeps her spirit and it keeps her memory alive for him. And it always brings a smile to his face. And that answer kind of stuck with me. And when Stand Up to Cancer, that moment happened after or in the middle of Game 2, it hit me again. And it hit me again that it's really important to keep memories alive of certain people. And that's kind of what the Stand Up to Cancer moment is about. Also about honoring people who are alive and fighting that horrible disease. And even with certain bow ties, not all of them, but certain bow ties, part of my thinking and motivation is to honor people who are fighting certain things and also to honor the memories of those who might have passed from a particular disease or condition. So when you watch Stand Up to Cancer, you always see the people standing, and it's always a poignant moment to see everyone standing with their signs, with the names on the signs. The players do this, the fans do this, everyone involved in the game does it. And as someone who is working on the broadcast, I'm always privileged to be able to honor people and have my sign shown because I'm part of the broadcast. They're going to show me. So this week, or this Stand Up to Cancer, I had 4 names. You can see them right there: Jim Henneman, David Calvert, Scott Miller, and Chris Obert. And Jim Henneman and Scott Miller are 2 former baseball writers who recently passed. And Jim is a guy that he was my predecessor at the Baltimore Evening Sun. Actually, my predecessor on the beat. When I joined the Evening Sun in 1987, they kind of took Jim, who was an older guy at that time, not that much older, but older than me, and they pushed him aside and made him sort of what we would call now a national baseball writer, but it really was more a second Orioles writer. And that was a difficult thing to accept for Jim, I'm sure. This young guy coming in, I was 24 at the time, I was clueless, excuse me, but he did it with such grace, and he was a class act all the way and also a really good writer in his own right. Scott Miller, a lot of you guys know who he is or was. He was a brilliant baseball writer. His work appeared in the New York Times, CBS, Sportsline, many other publications. Right before he passed, he published a book on managers, which is brilliant. And Scott is someone we all miss. David Calvert. David Calvert is a friend of my editor at The Athletic, our main baseball editor, Mark Carrig. And Mark asked me to include his name on one of my cards because David is going through it right now. He's fighting an aggressive form of leukemia. He is a guy who is the AAA photographer for the Reno Aces. That's the Diamondbacks' top affiliate, and someone who his friends speak so highly of and love dearly. And then finally, Chris Ober. Chris Ober is a member of the Fox Sports family. He's a guy who's been on our crew for many, many years. He first had a brain tumor in 2012. He's been dealing with stuff ever since, and he's someone that we all at Fox think so highly of and love. So these are 4 names. 2 have passed and 2 are still with us that I chose to honor. And everyone in that stadium had their own names, of course, had their own people that they were trying to do justice to and hopefully keep their names alive. And with certain bow ties, not all of them, as I said, certain bow ties, it's kind of the same idea. And the bow tie for Game 1 of the World Series was for the ALS Association. And ALS is, of course, a horrible disease. It's something a lot of people are dealing with, and a lot of people who have been part of baseball have dealt with in recent years. You see the names there. Jim Capel, former baseball writer, most recently of ESPN, he passed away from ALS. Matt Kirkjian, Tim's older brother, Tim's idol, great guy. Jim Poole, former major league pitcher, a guy I covered with the Baltimore Orioles, and Chris Snow, former baseball writer for the Boston Globe, who went on to become the assistant general manager of the Calgary Flames. These are all fantastic people in their own right, and all of them passed from ALS. And of course, one of our own right now, Sarah Langs, is fighting ALS and doing it with such dignity and grace. It's amazing. She's still at these games. She was at the World Series in Toronto. She's going to be here in LA. And not only is she at the games, she is working as she has always worked, giving us these amazing statistical nuggets that are just something that enhance the game for all of us. They are just amazing kinds of things that she comes up with, and she does it every day, even while fighting this horrible disease. So the point of this all is that certain people, you want to keep their names alive. You want to keep their memories alive if they've passed, and you want to honor them if they're still with us. And listen, we all care about the games, right? We all love talking about the games and discussing them and debating them and arguing about them. But, and you hear this and it's a cliche, there are times when we lose perspective. And it kind of hit me when Freddie said what he did about his mom. It hit me in the stand up to cancer moment. And it hits me when I wear certain bow ties that, hey, man, yeah, the games are important. The work that I try to do is important. The work that everyone is doing around the World Series is important. But this stuff, what we're talking about right now, far more important and far more necessary to keep talking about and keep thinking about as we go forward. You know, one purpose of the Stand Up to Cancer thing is obviously to raise money. And one purpose of the bow ties is to raise both money and awareness for certain organizations. Stand Up to Cancer was the one I wore for game 2. I've always thought with the bow ties, listen, people aren't buying those bow ties for the most part. Maybe they're giving to the charitable organizations. I almost always include a link where you can look up the organization and, of course, donate. But I've always thought that the main thing here is raising awareness of these different charities and doing all of the things that you can do within the context, the small context of what I'm doing to help along what's going on with those particular organizations. So again, it's awareness. It's the thing that has always motivated me with it since the time I started wearing the bow ties in, I don't know, 2010 or whenever it was. And it's the thing that is a huge motivator today. So with that, I want to talk about tonight's bow tie, which is fitting in this conversation, fitting for all of what I am discussing right here. It is a bow tie for the Kirk Gibson Foundation for Parkinson's. Now, of course, as the World Series returns to Dodger Stadium, Kirk Gibson's on everyone's mind. Kirk Gibson hit the amazing home run in Game 1 of the 1988 World Series. I was lucky enough to be there off Dennis Eckersley. It's one of the great moments in baseball history, certainly one of the most memorable moments for people of a certain age, and something that always brings a smile to your face. The Vin Scully call, Gibby's trip around the bases, all of it. Well, for 10 years now, Kirk Gibson has been fighting a diagnosis of Parkinson's disease. And he is a guy that, as a player, was one of the strongest individuals you could imagine, one of the fiercest competitors you can imagine. And here he is. He's dealing with Parkinson's, and he's dealing with it in the same way that he was as a player. And there's a story by Cody Stavenhagen that we had up last week about how he opened a 32,000 square foot Kirk Gibson Center for Parkinson's in Farmington Hills, Michigan. And at that center, there are classes that help those suffering with Parkinson's with cognitive therapy and physical therapy. And Kirk Gibson's the driving force behind all this. And through donations and fundraising, what they've done is they've enabled these classes to be free for all those suffering with Parkinson's who want to come and take advantage of those facilities and those classes that they have available. So the Kirk Gibson Foundation is a great one, and it's one that I'm honored to wear tonight. And again, Gibby, we want to honor you with this, and we want people to know what you're doing. And it's the same with all those people who have passed, and it's the same with all those people who are still dealing with whatever they're dealing with. As Freddie said, let's keep their spirit alive. Let's keep, in appropriate cases, their memories alive. That really is something that, even in these most competitive games of the year, is kind of foremost in my mind. We'll be back with Grillin Ken.
This episode is brought to you by Square. Your favorite neighborhood spots run on Square. Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. These businesses are what make the neighborhood the neighborhood. You and I are both in Orlando, and I see Square all the time at those awesome farmers markets around town.
And a lot of restaurants in general just have this to where they have the little thing plugged into their phone and you stick your card in it and wham, bam, we're out. It's cool. It's a way for local businesses to make money and make it easy on not only them, but also on me, the consumer, because Lord knows I'm not making or selling anything.
No, and it's a tap or on your phone, you double click.
You can even insert your chip if you want to, swipe it. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's changed the game. You can go to square.com/go/foul to learn more. But before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be happy that you did. Again, square.com/go/FOUL to learn more. Square. See you in the neighborhood. Get after it, FT fam.
It's the best time of year to be a sports fan. Football, baseball, basketball, and hockey are all on the slate today. To celebrate, we're giving you not one, but 2 Parlay Boost tokens to enjoy on any sport. No matter the sport you choose, there are countless options waiting for your parlay picks. Place your parlay and make this sports equinox one to remember. Head to the promotions tab at BetMGM for full pricing and terms. Gambling problem or concern? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
All right, time now for Grillin Ken, the part of the show where I answer your questions. So let's get right to it, not waste any time. Here comes the first question. It is from Richard Proctor, who asked, do you think that there will be any movement on the CBA this offseason as a result of the impending work stoppage? Do you foresee fewer long-term extensions and long-term free agent signings? Okay, 2 separate questions. Do I expect movement on the CBA this offseason? The answer to that is no, because we're still too far away from the expiration of the current deal, which is December 1st, 2026. Like everything else in baseball, like everything else in life, deadlines are what motivate people to act. And even though it would make a lot of sense to get this out of the way this offseason, I just don't expect serious movement until the following offseason, when obviously the deadline of December 1st will be staring everyone in the face. Now, how it will affect the free agent market and extension markets, that's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. If I'm running a team, I'm not terribly concerned about the possibility of missing time in 2027, even though at this moment, that possibility appears very real. If I were running a team, owning a team, because this is not going to be the president of baseball operations choice, I would run the team as I see fit and run the team as if this is not even happening. Because one, we're not sure we're going to miss time. In fact, I have a hard time believing still, for all the saber rattling going on right now, I have a hard time believing with this sport as successful as it is right now, that we're going to have a situation where the owners are willing to shut down the sport, lose money, lose games, and damage the reputation of the industry among sports fans. I have a really hard time believing that. Didn't happen last time, hasn't happened since 1995. Now, the motivations here are perhaps even stronger and the strongest they've been since 95. But again, this is a game of chicken, and I don't believe either side is going to be willing. It's the owners actually who make the call here. I don't believe the owners will be willing to go through with this. I'm still not convinced. So I would sign players to free agent contracts. I would sign them to long-term extensions. Easy for me to say. I'm not the one spending the money, I know, but I just don't see why it would necessarily disrupt things to that degree. Now, we've seen it already happen. The Angels only gave Kirk Suzuki a 1-year contract as the new manager, it seems, because they want to keep their options open entering a potential lockout situation. That's the Angels. I don't necessarily believe it's going to be every team. All right, now, next question. This one comes from Foul Territory. What has surprised you about this World Series so far? Ooh, that's a good question. I would say the Dodgers offense has surprised me. And Ohtani not being this major force has surprised me. Ohtani's had that one great game, the clincher in the NLCS, but he hasn't done all that much else. The home run in game 1 was kind of in garbage time, so I'm not sure I really count that. I would say that is what has surprised me most, that the Dodgers offense has not been all that potent. All right, one more question before we go. Let's see what we have. This one comes from Jim Huerta, who asked, do you believe John Stanton will actually let Seattle spend this offseason? Well, the way I would answer that is past performance is an indicator of future performance, right? I'll believe it when I see it. they've been a little bit more aggressive, Seattle, at least in the deadline this year when they took on Eugenio Suarez and Josh Naylor. But it's not like they're going out and spending like reckless sailors. So I don't necessarily believe they're going to spend big. I think they will spend and try to keep it going forward. Do I expect them to be a major player in free agency? No, I don't. They never have been. So let's see what happens. I shouldn't say never. They've done some things. Adrian Beltre was one. But in general, Seattle Mariners have not been that big a spender. All right. I want to thank everyone for watching, for listening. We will be back Friday with Alana Rizzo. I will probably still be either at the World Series, recovering from the World Series, but Alana will be there. Maybe I'll be joining her. I don't even know. And we'll see what happens then. Have a great week, everyone. Enjoy the rest of the World Series.